United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Brown?
The members on the policy subcommittee, I believe it was the two of you, but just receiving my meeting package now, the March 19th minutes of the policy committee show the three of us.
Then come right up.
But I don't want to be, if it wasn't clear.
Come right on up, Mr. Brown.
Step right up.
Come have a seat.
But whether that was approved by the board or not,
Mr. Brown? Yes, Mr. Fogg.
I don't like the way he's pushing himself on me.
Mr. Fogg?
Just kidding.
Sit down.
Happy Wednesday, Mr. Fogg, at 4:45. Mr. Brown, come up and join us, please.
does anybody else recall? Bob had me crossed.
I just don't have my subcommittees list here. If you want to come up, I have no problem with that.
I do, and I'd rather have them in front of me than behind me.
I seen you remember you didn't want him around.
Well, what do you think, Mr. Turner?
Come on up, Mr. Brown.
Tommy?
Come on up.
Sorry, Steve. I wouldn't say that myself.
I don't have the subcommittee members listed.
I don't have the
for me
list
as
with
well,
me.
but It's
and
not a problem.
It's not going to make a difference. It's a posted meeting.
Because any decision here is brought to the full board for
Yep.
final decision.
It's just a recommendation.
Correct.
So does anybody have any corrections or motion for the minutes of Wednesday, March 19th, 2014 policy?
I'm gonna have to defer to you two because I haven't had the time to.
Yep, having none,
We'll
seeing
call
none, I
this.
make a motion to approve the minutes of Wednesday, March 19th, 2014.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. One abstention.
Could that be duly noted in the minutes?
Yes, that you did not have your packet.
And
that-
that's the reason for my
Yes, Mr.
abstention,
Brown.
please? Thank you.
Yes, duly noted. Public comment? Mr. Fogg?
Is there a chance that you can get copies of the minutes for that subcommittee? I mean, I know that
We can make sure that they go in your packet.
in everybody's packet.
Yep.
That's, sorry, I didn't see it.
Yeah. And all the minutes, once they're approved, go online under
Oh, okay.
Wakefield Board Policies.
That's a good
So they're all
point.
available.
All right. And I guess I could take that request.
No, because it's okay to ask for it to be put in your packet as well, because not all of us go online on a regular basis. So it's okay if we ask. But it's good for the public to know that they're there. Anyone else? Policy BA, Board Operational Goals, and BAR1. We had some questions, so we had decided to bring this back in regards to some of the questions that were asked. Some of the board members had concerns about some of the questions. I don't know if Mr. Brown, did you bring your copy of that you had your questions on?
No, I didn't, because once again, without, getting the pertinent information in a timely manner, you don't know what's on the agenda.
Well, I'm gonna have to say then we're,
Although I am having a problem at this point with the self-evaluation on it.
the entire self-evaluation.
Well, the entire evaluation, but the evaluation is also in BA.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I think I have to say that I think it's okay that we evaluate ourselves. I think that we all need to take a step back and make sure that we're doing what's in the best interests of our job. I don't necessarily know if it needs to go back to you, or if it needs to go back to the board itself, and we say, how did you do on this? You know? Because right now, it goes back to you, and it gets tallied, and it gets evaluated, but it might be better off if it goes to the chairman, and he evaluates it, and then we meet, and we discuss as a team with you and the rest of the administration where we go from there.
BAR1 needs to be unadopted.
And can I ask why you think we should not evaluate ourselves? Or do you think there are other ways to evaluate ourselves?
Well, absolutely. I mean, you know, after researching this time and time again, you know,
Does anyone know how?
take, you know, for one example, under relationship with the superintendent, number 10, takes the initiative in maintaining a professional salary for the superintendent comparable with salaries paid for similar responsibility in and out of the profession. That clearly takes 100% of accountability out of the picture. I totally disagree with policy BA, the questions in policy BAR1. And I think the board, there's far more important things going on than, as it was explained to us, that after the board evaluation, that the board will then work on policies to improve the results of the evaluation. The board clearly has far more important things to deal with. And I just totally do not agree with a lot of these questions on BAR1. And therefore, I would make the motion that BAR1 is unadopted.
Do either of us choose to second it for discussion?
It needs to be discussed.
So you're seconding it for the second?
Yeah.
For discussion?
For discussion.
Okay, discussion, and if there's input, I don't think there's a problem with us definitely sitting down and saying, are we doing the best we possibly can? Are we reading our packets? Are we keeping up to date on our policies? Are we taking the initiative to do the best that we can by the taxpayers and the 601 students of the town of Wakefield?
We definitely need to have the
I
evaluation in
think
there.
that we have to have some form of evaluation. I don't necessarily. Did the old board do this evaluation?
Then I don't know.
No, the last,
Since Steve was on the board, we hadn't done it. We had done it up to that point, because he was adamantly against it.
You had always done an evaluation, Mrs.
We had done
Colbath,
it up to
until
that
then?
point.
So if
It's the goal setting that's the most
Yeah.
important.
So let me ask this. If you have a problem with the evaluation, you can choose to put 1, never. Okay, you have the right to answer that any way that you see fit and with your personal beliefs and understandings in place. But I would also have the privilege of answering how I feel. And I think that 5 individual people might all have individual feelings and outcomes and different ways of thinking of things. And I think that the diversity of it is what makes it acceptable. And just like any other piece of paper, if you choose not to answer a question, that's your right. But that doesn't mean that we abolish the whole thing, because there could be substantial good coming out of this. If you have a personal problem with some of it, I understand that. But what's personal problem for you may not be a personal problem for the rest of us. And if I see one that I feel uncomfortable with, I can choose not to answer that one either. But I can't see we're evaluating us. The 5 of us are evaluating ourselves to say, am I personally doing a good job? And are the 5 of us together doing the best that we can do? And if we find things that we're not, it just gives us something to aim for.
The explanation that we received is that after the evaluation is done, they will be given to the superintendent. He will correlate them into averages. Now, whenever you average numbers, you are actually lowering the actual score. Now, and then after those averages are correlated, the board will then spend its time creating policy to improve the results of the evaluation.
So who told you that?
Superintendent Tercey.
Mr. Tercey?
It's on video.
Mr. Tercey's hand is in the air. Mr. Tercey?
And that is what I said, but it can also be the board chair that collects this information, and it's how you use the information that's important. That was a suggestion or a recommendation. It wasn't a directive or any of that sort. And I do believe my comment was around it's used to establish your operational goals, not specific policies. Whether that becomes a policy, that's different. But the intent of the self-evaluation is to find where you as a board feel that you have strengths, where you find as a board have weaknesses, and you address the results by developing operational goals. So if you remember, that's 2 components. You develop board goals, board operational goals, and district goals.
Which we have not done.
And this is board operational goals, which really deals with the operation of the school board as a whole.
Okay.
Well, to that point, I think the board should have some input. I mean, this particular evaluation is clearly, in my opinion, a diversion of the board's precious time. And therefore, I'll tell you right now, I will not be participating in this exercise.
And that would be your choice.
Precisely.
Mrs. Colback?
Just a quick thing. When we did the evaluation, it was done for goal setting. The superintendent never saw it. We had an
No.
executive session. We discussed it. Actually, you don't even have to use that sheet. You can have a discussion amongst yourselves,
That's
what
what
you've
it-
done, what you haven't done, and it never goes any further, and you set your goals with what you have on your notes.
That's the way I see it.
I'm thinking that having the 5 of us sit down and having a very frank discussion. In our policies, this says that this is done in January, or this is done in June, July, August, September, October, November, December, all the way through. Have we met our policies? Are we doing what's in the best interest of the 601 kids? I don't think that we need to necessarily have a piece of paper that says, are we doing everything that we're supposed to do to the best of our abilities? But I think it's important that we have an executive meeting. I don't necessarily know. If no one else is going to see this other than us, and at the end of the night, we've set our goals and we rip these up and shred them, I can't understand. It might give us pinpoints that we don't see. Some of them I don't agree with. Some of the questions I probably would choose not to answer. But it doesn't mean that there's not good material within the policy.
It gives us a guideline to go forward with.
At the end of the
center
night-
the discussion. Rip them up.
Rip them up, but our goals are set and our mission's been accomplished.
Then create that. Create that.
Well, maybe if we bring it to the full board, maybe the other board members won't have a problem with answering the ones you want to answer. Don't answer the ones you don't want to answer. Let's meet as an executive group and go from there. And then once we meet the 5 of us, we're going to be able to clearer see what we want, what we need to do, what we haven't done, and where we need to look at. But I don't have, other than sitting down and, I know I've read the policy book and I have what we're supposed to do from June, June to May 31st or July 1st to June 30th. I know that, but I know that there are things that I've missed. I know that there are things we've all missed. And that's just not acceptable. But maybe in answering this and having an executive session would be advantageous to all of us and the staff and students and administration of the district.
I agree.
Perfect. Do you want to, you can agree to disagree. That's why it's a board. That's why it's okay.
No, it's not okay.
Well, it may not be okay for you, but
You
maybe
know?
it's okay for us.
I mean, there's so many wrong things in this. Like I
So-
said, create one. Let's not use this one.
What do you want to use?
Create one, I said. We
So
can
that
have
means the
that
five
meeting,
of us have to get together anyway.
which is fine. But in the interim, we unadopt BAR1 and we'll create our own. I mean, I can see a couple more in here that already stick out. I mean, we create policy and then policy is not adhered to. It's not why bother creating policy if they're not going to be complied with?
Yes.
Ask, so why now? Because this was adopted in October by the same board?
I have absolutely no idea, Mr. Tercey. Quite honestly, I personally do not have a problem with doing it. If I feel uncomfortable answering one of the questions, I simply am not going to answer it. I have no idea why now.
Steve was absent from that meeting, the policy meeting. Remember?
Yeah.
Okay,
But it came before the whole board to be adopted.
that's true.
So if it came before the whole board to be adopted, that means that 3 out of the 5 of us approved it.
Okay, so with additional information, you just, you just go along, with something now that after further research and further information is now showing itself to really not be what it's really designed to be. I have a problem with that.
I have a problem with that as well. But we are not going to know the flaws of it until we go over it. So if we go over it, using this as a model, and then come back to the board after we've met, filled them out as an executive committee with, we would like to replace BAR1 with the following document. There's no need to abolish it now and then go back and rehash it. Use it now as a guideline, meet as an executive committee, and go over it after that. If there are perks and changes, then there are perks and changes made by the 5 of us. And then we can come forward and all knowing and all being on the same page after having a very probably in-depth discussion, which is positive, with all 5 of us knowing exactly how all 5 of us feel.
You can use it as a guideline at any time you want,
Then why?
even whether it's unadopted.
Well, all right, so there's a motion and a second to, just, take BAR1 out of the policy book,
Unadopt.
unadopt. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Aye.
Aye.
So we'll bring it to the full board.
Use it as a guideline.
We'll bring it to the full board. We'll ask it to be used as a guideline for this year. We'll set up an executive meeting, go over our evaluation, and at the full board at that executive time chooses to rebuild BAR1. We'll do so at that point in time and move forward. BGB, policy adoption. What we had asked on this is, we had tried going to 1 subcommittee meeting and then 1 meeting of the full board to pass policies. We had found that that was not advantageous to all of the board members as well as the public, that we wanted them to have ample time to read the policies over before we made decisions. We wanted them to have time to voice their opinion. further than the one meeting. In case they were not aware, we wanted to make sure that they had two. So I had made a motion at the last meeting to go back to the policy the way that it read before.
Those are the changes that you see in
Mhm.
the packet. That's the original policy wording.
Thank you very much. So, is there any discussion on this? Having none and seeing one, I'll make a motion to adopt BGB as amended.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Moving forward, CBI, evaluation of the superintendent, and CFB. If we do CBI first. This was revised in June 2012. I guess I don't, other than knowing that we have to complete it, I don't necessarily know why it's on the agenda again. Do you have clarification to that?
Well, I was just gonna ask you, what was the second policy you,
CFB, so you have
okay.
this
the-
one,
all right.
the evaluation, and then the evaluation itself.
And this is part of, these questions are part of CBI currently?
Yeah, well, no, these questions are CFB, I believe. No. I so apologize. These are CBI, right?
Correct.
They're already,
And CFB is, I apologize.
they're currently part of CBI.
Yes.
Yes.
So this, once again, is an evaluation that we would do, give back to the chair. The chair would, we'd probably discuss it as a chair, and then we would meet with Michael and go over the evaluation. So, once again, if there's comments that we don't feel comfortable with, don't answer them. But I think it's in the best interest of all of us at this point in time to really do a solid evaluation so that Michael can move forward and we can move forward and everybody can know where everybody stands. Any discussion?
Question?
Hmm?
A question
Mm-hmm.
on the relationship with the staff on the superintendent's evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
That's, how do we know? We're not here. We don't interact with the staff.
Then we just
You
have to
know,
put
I
NA.
just-
We just
yeah,
have to
I
put
mean, I don't
NA.
think
We
any of
just,
that's applicable.
well, you know what, I
applicable for us.
see, I guess in my, I guess I've seen the way he interacts with the staff. And I've been at things and I see, and when staff come and say, he was there, he's in the building, we see him all the time. He's polite, he addresses things, he's, prompt at meetings, he does this, he does that. Then I don't know the nitty gritty of it,
Right,
but I know that he's definitely present.
okay.
And I know that he's present. And I know that he's interacting with the staff, and he's at staff meetings, and he's doing all of the things that are required of him.
As a board, you can solicit these
Yeah.
questions, the answers to these questions from the staff.
You know what? You could-
Formalize that process
we could
in some way.
Come to the next staff meeting
I think it'd be great.
Right.
and just say, hey, we've got a couple questions, help us out. Ms.
But
Brown?
to that, Mr. Tercey's point, because it really isn't applicable to the board, because I don't believe that most of us really witness this, maybe this would be far better served by having an anonymous, have the staff answer this piece of it anonymously.
Can we do that?
Why can't you?
I think it'd be great.
Yeah.
I think that's the best idea, to get the,
I'd like to know what the staff.
I would love to know what the staff think of not only you, but Nate and Jerry, Cafe Services, Andrew, everybody that they deal with, front office staff, I would love to have like, maybe that's something that we could do. Like come up with some kind of a, how do you feel? How are we doing? What do we need to work on?
Right.
What's super positive? What's not positive? What's outstanding? That might be a good thing.
The principal evaluation is a responsibility of the superintendent, so that's things that I would solicit information from the
Perfect.
staff.
And then maybe you could share that information with us. Maybe throw in how you feel about me too on your little questionnaire.
To the staff.
Yeah, ask
Well, that
them.
would be,
Is that our job?
well, you have to keep in mind that even under the self-evaluation tool for the board, it says, as a board, you provide the answers to those questions.
Those questions.
But also you can ask administrators to provide answers to those questions as
Well,
well.
why don't we,
So
I would
that's
say
part of
for
the-
our executive committee meeting, do your superintendent evaluation as well. Any questions that you think would be better answered by the staff, have a list of them and we'll be ready to go and we'll move forward with our self-evaluation, the superintendent's evaluation, and then also receive the input from the staff and we can move forward. How you feel about that?
I think it's a good idea.
Sounds good, but how are we gonna implement, the question is how we're gonna implement that.
Well, what we're gonna do is when we meet as an executive committee, we'll make a list of questions or copy and paste these and say, there is a locked box outside. Please, if you could take 5 minutes out of your day and answer these for us, we would greatly appreciate your time. If you could have them back in by such and such a date, that would be outstanding. We'll bring it to the next policy committee, we'll have it approved, and we'll send it out.
Are you talking about the relationship with the staff piece?
Mhm.
Yes.
You know, how is that gonna be handled anonymously? If you're gonna put it in a lockbox within the building, and who's going to get it?
The lockbox.
It's a lockbox, you drop it in. Put it in a sealed envelope and drop it in.
Who's gonna,
You.
You can do it.
that's my question.
You.
Because
fine.
that
You,
would-
me, one of the 5 of us will take responsibility for it. Ralph said he wants to. We'll let him handle the keys.
I think that's the best way to get
You could
this
also-
information.
You could also develop a survey through SurveyMonkey, and that's all anonymous.
SurveyMonkey is great, but that means you have to develop that on SurveyMonkey, and I don't, do you have staff that can do that for us if we
I
give
love
you the questions?
SurveyMonkey.
You do?
I love SurveyMonkey.
Perfect. We've got someone to develop it on SurveyMonkey.
I just do.
She just volunteered, I
Or
love
we can go
that.
back to the paper and drop it in the box, and Mr. Brown can pick them up.
Yeah. So, in seeing that, I guess we've made our decision on the policy, so we'll move forward to put that onto an executive committee.
Can I get clarification on that? So it goes to an executive meeting, so it'd be a school board meeting, so we put it on it as an agenda?
Workshop?
It's an executive meeting, so it's non-public, I believe. And we have time to privately discuss everything.
However, if you're discussing the evaluation tool in general, that needs to be in public, so it wouldn't be a non-meeting. It wouldn't fit the description of a non-meeting. However,
An executive committee can develop policy. No?
it should be in public.
Well, come with your scratch sheets and we'll have it in public on the next agenda after the executive meeting.
And any discussion of evaluation of the board has to be in public. As for the superintendent, that can be a non-public, but as for the board, it has to be in public.
Well, I think that we should, if we're changing policy, or if we're evaluating each other, if you have an executive meeting to go over all of those figures and then bring forth the information after that, isn't that considered public?
As long as the public is,
Made aware of the outcome of the evaluation.
are available to hear the discussion about the evaluation process with the board, that has to be in public.
So it really can just be put on the agenda of a
Correct.
regular meeting.
That's the best way to do it.
Are you
So?
talking- sorry.
Go
You're
ahead.
talking about the process, or you're talking about the results?
The
process
process.
and the results should be in public, because you're discussing board members. It's an elected official, it should be in public.
But I would think that that in itself would basically be an entire meeting.
Then that's what we do. We block out that time and it's the whole meeting. Get rid of the business that's at hand right away, and then we dive right into that, and that's what we do the rest of the meeting.
Because to try to do that, plus our regular agenda, you know,
Well,
you better pack breakfast,
well, I don't do breakfast, so someone else is gonna have to cook.
because we'll be here till 2 o'clock in the morning. to
Okay,
try to
so
do it.
can we please just make sure that it's in the minutes that we have to set up a board meeting that will be primarily based around evaluations? CFB, building principal evaluation. I don't know why this got brought up. It was done in June of 2012. I don't know who asked for it to be, unless we just asked for all of the evaluations to be put on the agenda. This is something you do?
This is something I do, absolutely. And this list of policies came out of a request when
Okay.
you and Mr. Brown had met, and it was a list for this policy meeting.
Okay.
So that's why we included it, so.
And you're moving forward with the
Yep.
with your evaluation, and do you bring that to us at some point in time?
That comes with my recommendation for, you know, whether it's a contract or it's a salary increase.
How does that work if he's got a 2 or 3 year contract?
Well, we recommend a nomination every year
Okay.
based on a salary increase.
Okay. And you give us the outcome of the evaluation?
Mhm.
Perfect. Any other questions?
None for me.
The only thing that I could see in that I don't see in there is, once again, maybe having staff anonymously.
Did you say that that was part of your evaluation and the questions that you asked staff questions?
Yeah, the evaluation tool is based on my interactions with the staff, conversations with staff, how the principal addresses the staff during staff meetings, all of that. It's all based on observation.
Is that okay with you?
Well, what about staff input?
That's what you had said,
Correct.
your discussions with the staff, is that correct?
Mhm.
Do you feel that it's important to do an anonymous, do you feel that the staff feels threatened in this building, that they can't speak freely without being held in repercussion?
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay, so if that's the case, then I think that they would be forthcoming if you said, how's it going, what's, you know?
Well, why not, if you're gonna have that relationship with the staff as part of the superintendent's evaluation, why couldn't we have the same thing with the principal's evaluation? I think you'd have a much better feel for an evaluation. These are the people who are interacting with the principal on a daily. If you do it anonymous.
But I guess I feel that this evaluation isn't our responsibility, it's his. And he feels that he's got the tools he needs with the materials and the evaluation that he already has in place. And if he feels secure in that, then we should feel secure that he knows what he's doing. And trust that he's gonna move forward with the information that he has.
And you're referring to the superintendent?
Yes, sir.
See, I'm referring to the principal.
The superintendent is who does the principal's evaluation.
Yes.
And I believe that this evaluation is not our job. It's his job.
That's
The
right.
superintendent's job. So unless he comes to us with a policy change because he feels that something else needs to be more clarified, then I would think that the policy would be where it needs to be.
I'd like to see relationship with the staff included in that, with an anonymous from the staff. Make it it's part of the superintendent. Why wouldn't you want to hear from the staff what they're feeling about their interaction with the building principal?
But maybe he already gets that information and they're wholeheartedly open with him without fear.
And
We're assuming that they have fear to talk to him. Mr. Tercey?
Difference being is that as the superintendent, I can ask the staff about the the job performance of the principal. Difference for this, as the evaluation of the superintendent, is the board isn't necessarily speaking with the staff on that specific questions that you see within that evaluation. I'm in the building, I'm having conversations with staff, so I'm always getting that information, whereas the superintendent evaluation is a responsibility of the board, and the board's not gathering that information on a daily or weekly basis, so that's the difference.
Mr.
I have
Braun?
interactions with the staff more than the board would with the staff to evaluate a superintendent.
Mr. Brown, Mr. Fogg?
Not much different. Out of the discussion about Common Core, it was stated by some of our school board members that staff does not want to, they're afraid of giving their input on the curriculum. I remember that being part of the reason why we didn't want to wait for the teachers' input. So, I mean, I have an idea that there's some comfort level with all the staff and administration to talk about issues. But that was one of the reasons that we couldn't wait for the input, because everybody was afraid to give their input. So, just watching this subcommittee act on the idea that there is no fear in the building. And I would kind of agree, but let's go back a couple of meetings ago. That was one of the reasons why we couldn't get input.
So, Mr. Tercey, in hearing that the board may have concerns of feeling that the staff does not feel comfortable being 100% honest, how do you, or how could you move forward to gather information so that we would make sure that there's more open discussion without fear?
Honestly, I feel that there could have been some fear instilled in the staff in the past that is getting better. That's what I'm hearing now, is that those from staff, that they're more open to communicating with the principal and feel confident in the principal. So I'm sensing that. The other day, when Mr. Fogg was mentioning about the discussion around Common Core, that's the first time I heard the staff was afraid to say something. So that's not coming across. However, you would find that in any building, quite honestly, where some staff members just do not want to speak out because they have this fear of retaliation or repercussion of some sort. You're going to find that anywhere. I don't sense that in this building when I'm in here. So that's why I feel that the evaluation tool that I currently have and have been using, it'd be different if I wasn't getting into the schools as often as I am and talking with staff members. Then that would be a tool that I might look at as putting together some sort of sample question and doing it, but I'm constantly having conversations with staff. I'm comfortable with the way the building is operating, and I have a comfort level with the way the staff feels within the building. Of course, there could be, one or two staff members that always have that fear.
Well, could you please, in your evaluation process, maybe just offer that if someone wants to write a letter or comment or something, that they have the opportunity to do that?
Anonymously.
Anonymously, yes.
Excuse me, I would just have if staff is in here doing their job, how much actual back and forth conversation can really be taking place?
A lot, I would hope. I would hope that there is a lot of communication between our principal and our staff.
While staff is doing their job.
No, but there are other times. I mean, he's evaluating the classrooms. He's, sitting at lunch with them. He's having. I would hope that there's an extreme amount of communication between our principal, our vice principal, and our staff. And if there isn't, then that would alarm me. But I would think with the...
Right now, I'm referring to policy CFB and the building principal's evaluation that's done by the superintendent.
Mm-hmm.
If staff is in the building doing their job, their daily routine of their job, how much actual communication is happening during when staff is doing their job? If they're doing their job, they really probably don't have a lot of time to sit down with the superintendent on a regular basis and have that communication process. So my only point is, if you're gonna have the relationship with staff and the superintendent, what harm does it? I mean, this could help it could help everyone. Why not just do?
So what are you making a motion to do, Mr. Brown?
To add relationship with the staff as an anonymous, what would be?
Element.
Questionnaire.
Element.
Questionnaire. Would be
Questionnaire,
an
survey.
anonymous questionnaire. Added to the principal's evaluation.
Madam Chair.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to repeat that I'm completely confident in the evaluation tool, which was included in a packet when this originally came to the board, and I'm confident in the process. I'm definitely confident in the sense that if there was a problem with the job performance of our principal, I would be made aware of it, not only by staff members, but also by the community. So
I guess I just have to say that the only board member that voted on this is Mr. Brown. The rest of us are all new. So although we read it in our policy, we really haven't acted on anything like this and made any changes while you're in place and while we're in place.
the policy itself.
The policy itself.
Mhm.
So, if I understand that you feel comfortable. If we have a member that feels uncomfortable, we at least have to be polite and bring it to the rest of the board
Sure.
and ask, or we can make a motion. So you're making a motion to add relationship with staff, anonymous element to the principal evaluation. Is that what your motion is, Mr. Brown?
An anonymous questionnaire, yes.
Is there a second? Black got a second. If you would like us to still bring it to the full board for a vote, we can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, moving on, discussion of Google Docs, apps protection policy, data mining policy, and opt-out policy. Let's start with Google Docs.
We need to come up with a policy on how we're gonna protect, information being used on Google, because Google is disseminating information to third parties.
Okay. Mr. Tercey, you, actually, when we interviewed you, you were in support of Google Docs
Still am.
and still am. Do you, I use it for my own businesses as well. I don't know what type of policy you're thinking of having. I don't know if we need the administration to bring us the pros and cons of Google Docs, or where Google Docs, you know, the iCloud, where they're stored, how safe is it, how safe is the children's information and their paperwork, how, you know, even the documents that we send back and forth to one another. I don't necessarily know.
Guess my question would be, where's the proof that they're putting out to third parties?
I have no idea. This is not a third party. Is it, Mr. Brown, are you the one that asked for this?
Yes.
Okay. And your concern is third party
dissemination of information, that Google is selling information, disseminating information to third parties. How do you think whenever you click on Google and you type in a search thing, all of a sudden you start getting all kinds of ads for almost the exact same thing that you put into the search engine? Google is disseminating every single thing that you do on Google to third parties. They're selling the information.
I have to be honest, I don't know anything about Google Docs, Mr. Tercey, rest of the board. I know nothing except that I use it, I save everything to a disk, and that's what I do. A zip drive.
Well, children's information, I think we have to be really careful and make sure. And
Well, I don't think the kids, although they're saving stuff to Google Docs, doesn't mean that they're going online. They're just using Google Docs. They're not, if they're doing a search engine or something, that's one thing, and that information might pop back up, but we have pop-up blockers on all of the, we have blockers on all of the advertisement and third-party initiative coming into the building, is that not correct? And documents just make it available to,
okay, how about this? How about if we ask Back Bay to see and get some information? Because specifically, they're selling, Google is selling information to third party. So why don't we get someone that's more, you know, I'm not completely computer savvy myself, but maybe, you know, have Back Bay look into this and find out and just make sure that the information is protected and not going beyond the school district.
Mr. Tercey, could you take care of that for us? Okay. Next up is data mining policy protection. I think this is you again, Mr. Brown.
Well, it's kind of one and the same with the smarter balance. I'm totally against the data mining piece of smarter balance. And actually, now that I've been thinking about it, I'd actually like to change the opt-out policy of smarter balance to an opt-in.
Mr. Tercey?
It's not an option to opt out. It's a state law that all students will take our state assessment. So there aren't opt-out policies, and it's not an option. So to develop a policy that's against the law, I don't support.
Well, I don't support data mining either, so even if it is a state law,
Okay.
as far as I'm concerned, data mining is not going to be allowed. And if Virginia Berry would like to contest that, then let her contest it. But we need to protect the children. The children's information is not being protected. It is clear data mining, and I have a grave problem, and I don't care whether the state tells us that we are going to data mine our children. I say no, and let the state tell us that we have to. And also, if the superintendent has the RSA as to where this is.
I guess my concern with data mining, and the reason I supported this being on, is that we had asked our administration to please be absolutely vigilant on private, personal questions being asked of the children. Hair color, eye color, that's great, but there are certain things that we've read on surveys that are absolutely unacceptable questions to be asked within them, whether they're looking for a geographic look at the children or a housing, religion, we don't know, we don't care what it is, but unless it's pertinent to their education, we don't want that information given out. We want the kids protected. Like, do you remember the survey I showed you? Like, you know, I was kind of upset that it said, you know, have you ever tried drugs? You know, how often do you feel blue? Do you feel successful in a week? That's really not information that our kids should be giving out on a survey. I have a problem with that. I have a problem of who lives in your house.
Yeah.
And so my concern is that I wanted to develop a policy so that the administration would know and could follow that this is the information that we clear as okay to say, and this is the information that we want protected. And I think that that was asked by the administration because you wanted clearer guidelines of what we considered private so that you could implement that, like if you saw it coming in a survey, or if you saw it coming in on a test, your staff and your teachers and you all would know that it's done. They can't answer this, leave it blank.
But it's part of Smart Towns.
The survey that I saw was not part of anything other than a survey, and it was given to our high school students. And it had questions on there that I would have been absolutely appalled if my kids would have answered, because it just asked things that, you know, outside our four walls and the people that we choose to share that information with, it's none of anybody's business. I don't care if you're trying to set up a demographic, if you're trying to build your guidance department, I don't care what you're trying to do, that information is private. It's like you don't want your children leaving and saying, hey, my checkbook balance for my mom is, you know, there are things that you don't say outside the four walls, and there are discussions that families have as a family unit that I don't want my kid being like, well, when we had that talk, am I supposed to say what we said? No, it's none of their business. So that's what I need help developing a policy for, in my opinion. I want to make sure that the kids are protected and they're not being asked invasive questions that are too personal. And I would like us all to figure out what we consider too personal.
Exactly.
Mr. Fogg?
Isn't there a policy existing now where activities and stuff that go on inside the four walls of the school itself, the school districts, whether it's teacher, staff relation, whatever, isn't there a policy that all of the problems stay within the building and don't get discussed outside of the building?
Well, I think that's kind of hokey, because I think that things should be, there may be. I think that if something happens, you know, rumors are horrible.
The reason I ask the question is we should certainly, if that is the case, and if there is that policy, that same kind of approach or attitude should be extended to our children and their families.
Mm-hmm. Could you please, what do you want to say that RSA before you get distracted?
It's the RSA is not going in. The RSA you want to refer to is 193-C:6.
191.
193.
193.
-C:6. It's titled Assessment Required. Reads, each year a statewide assessment shall be administered in all school districts in the state in grades 3 through 8 and 1 grade in high school. All public school students in the designated grade shall participate in the assessment unless such student is exempted, or provided that the Commissioner of the Department of Education may, through an agreement with another state, when each state and New Hampshire are parties to an interstate agreement, allow pupils to participate in the state's assessment program as an alternative to the assessment required under this chapter.
This isn't an RSA. This is what, an administrative rule?
No, this is RSA 193-C:6.
Or is this Department of Education rules?
These are education laws by the state that run through, these are RSAs.
Do you have your law?
Yes, I haven't, but, well.
Okay, so can we look into that?
You sure can. The other one you should look into is 193-E:5, unique pupil identification. This is where student identification is protected by law as to what can be provided. It also states what the repercussions could be if you provide information that can lead to personal identification of a student.
Mm-hmm. Can your staff work on to help us develop a policy to make sure that we have that clearly stated? I think you understand what type of information we don't want given out, and although it's a law, I just want to make sure that we have a policy that's firm enough to back that law.
I could put the law into a policy format for the board.
How about we work on that and you can bring it to the next meeting?
Sure.
Are you all right with that?
Well,
And we can rediscuss it again then?
okay, but I just want to go on record as I have a total problem with that.
Okay.
Because every student under the age of 18, the parent is the legal authority, period. And a parent has the legal authority to opt their children out, period. Who owns that law says that we don't own our children. The state owns our children. And I have a problem with that. Because as far as I'm concerned, the parents are the legal authority for the children, and the state of New Hampshire does not own our children. And I would contest that on a
Okay,
minute's notice.
so,
They don't have to take these
I
assessments.
guess I have to ask, Mr. Jersey, can you find anything on that? What if the parents decide they're not gonna take these tests?
If they decide to.
What if I
opt
say,
out.
I tell my child, no, I don't want you taking that test?
Mhm.
What is that?
Again, it's not something that
I mean,
doesn't happen often.
right, it's a fine line there. If, you know, a bunch of
However,
parents
it
decide
can-
they're not taking them,
It can affect our participation rate in the assessments, and that's one of the things that's used for accountability is your participation.
okay, so can we look into that further? May we all do research, all 5 of us are here, look into it to the level that you feel that it's important to you, and we'll all come back and we'll discuss it. Well, can we please put that on the next agenda for the next policy meeting as well?
So develop a policy based on 193E5.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Well,
I just want to know what the guidelines are. I need time to do a
Okay.
little research.
But basing a policy, you know, I'd want to look at that first, because like I said, the parent is the legal authority, not the state. And if you allow the state to take legal authority of your children, this is just another erosion of our rights.
Okay.
And it would be a cold day somewhere before the state of New Hampshire or any school district told me that my kid had no right to opt out. Because that's legal right there. And let the state contest it.
Mr. Chelsea?
And that's something that isn't handled at the local level, that's something that's handled through legislature, so if the community wants to pursue that in some way, then we can bring it to the legislature
Okay,
and run it through an amendment to a bill.
okay. So I'm
We're not
gonna,
gonna be able to handle it at the local level.
okay, I'm gonna ask all of us to do as much research as we feel fit for our own personal needs and to bring that back to the next agenda. Having none and seeing no more, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second for discussion. What's the status of the opt-out or opt-in policy for Smarter Balance?
We just said that we needed to research that, didn't we?
Well, is that for that, or is that for the data mining?
I would think it would be for both.
for both.
Is that my clear on that?
I just don't understand, you could do the research, however, you can't develop a policy, a local policy that goes against state law. So I'm not sure what the intent of developing a policy for opting out would be.
The intent would be to reiterate the parent's legal authority. That is what the intent would be, to reiterate that the parent's legal authority over their children, not the state's children. So,
Again,
I
I don't
don't.
understand developing a policy around that.
Why don't we all just look into it, worry about the data mining, and we'll bring back up the opt-out on the next agenda for more clarification.
So table that to the next agenda?
Yes, please. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of adjournment?
all right.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.